Hey guys, welcome back to the Coarse Grind. I'm Ethan from Empire Coffee Roasters, and I'm here with my co-host Paul from Derelict Coffee. How are you, mate?
Wonderful. Another day in paradise, as always.
Absolutely. Hey, so before we get kicked into today's topic, I want to throw a little bit of dirty politics into this because we love spicing things up. Somebody said the other night that we're not controversial at all. There's no way this could be a controversial podcast, so I thought I'd keep
Not
it
if
clean.
I've got anything to do with it.
Hey, what's this whole business about paywave fees?
Paywave fees. That is a
So
spicy
disconnected
topic.
from social media for the last about 4 weeks, kind
You're
of.
looking
For the most
happier.
part. Oh mate, I'm sleeping like a baby. But so I've been disconnected from everything that's happening in the news. So all but the news that I get is whatever somebody tells me.
Yes.
And apparently there's a paywave fee thing where businesses aren't going to be able to on-charge the paywave surcharge, paywave fee.
Yeah,
What's
which that I understand completely why it's controversial. Don't get me wrong, right from the outset, I'm against paywave surcharges. Myself, I do not charge them in my business. That's my prerogative. However, I also feel that, you know what? It's not your average cafe who's making multi-billion dollars worth of profit every year on these financial transactions. That is where things need to be solved. It needs to begin with the banks. The banks are charging these fees to merchants. Yes, they've been brought down, and this has been ongoing for a few years. I remember my FPOS provider or my bank, one of the two, having a conversation with me that your fees are coming down. I know they made a pricing matrix they spent COVID lockdown making a pricing matrix, so you can't put a sticker on your FPOS terminal to say don't pay wave, it costs us. It was pretty much a do the hokey tokey, depending on whether you're MasterCard or Visa, whether it's debit card or credit. They had your ass nailed to the wall, and they were creaming it. And they said basically the government is doing an investigation. At the end of this investigation, your fees might come down. To me, it said, look, we are fleecing you and we're going to continue until the government stops it. Well, they've kind of, I guess you could say they've found a happy medium in terms of, then, like, don't get me wrong, I'm sort of trying to play devil's advocate here instead of just getting in there with my wooden spoon and mixing things up like I normally do. They've brought the paywave they've brought the cost to merchants down, but then they're stopping merchants passing it on. And my thing with this is, coming from a retail background, having worked for a big box retailer, it is illegal for me to offer you a price on a product and then charge you more if you want to put it on finance. So for me, I completely agree in terms of all things being equal, that it should be illegal to add an additional charge in that respect as well, if things are all being equal. Otherwise, charge more for finance. Same. But it needs to be across the board.
I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to bring out the wooden spoon. I'm 100% into this. So we currently don't charge for paywave and credit facility. We were about to, as in we'd started doing the research and planning for this because we spend a stupid amount of money a year on merchant fees. So now obviously we're not, because now if we did for the next 6-8 months, we'd look really bad.
Yes.
And that's fine. That is what it is. Look, I have no issue with you banning surcharging for paywave. If you turn around and tell the banks cannot charge us for it. All right. I believe in a user pay system. So I believe that if you want to use your paywave, which, yes, it speeds things up by 20 seconds, but it is a convenience factor for you, because now you can leave your wallet at home with the kids who are spending all your money on the Xbox and use your phone or your watch. All right. So it is a convenience factor for you. Credit card is a convenience factor for you because it allows you to use somebody else's money to make a purchase. Then yes, you should get charged for that if the merchant is getting charged for it. All right. User pays. What I see happening is that come May, when this goes into play, is that we're going to see a price increase across the board on everything by about 5% to accommodate for the fact that businesses now have to pay for that. All right. Now, I'm not talking in your big box stores that aren't charging you. I'm talking your little guys, us. We're going to see a 5% across the board, which is more than what the paywave fees is, but 5% is just an easier number. Whenever we see an increase, it's always more than what needs to be. Right. I think also what happens here is we create a precedent, right? Where now that we've banned the surcharge on paywave, next thing that's going to happen is we're going to get to a public holiday and somebody's going to turn around to a cafe owner and say, you can't be charging public holiday fees. It's
And
illegal.
that's
And then
an
it's going to be
interesting.
issued to the Parliament, and then Parliament are going to address it, and they're going to ban. And cafes, the argument of whether a cafe should or shouldn't surcharge on a public holiday has been an ongoing argument. Some believe you should, some believe you shouldn't. Personally, I don't think it matters what you believe. It's the fact that it is there and it is available. And if you do want to open up on a public holiday, yes, you theoretically should make more money from being open on a public holiday because everybody else is off, but you've also got higher expenses. So there is the fact that you need to make it worth opening on that public holiday.
Yes.
I think it's also worth noting on a little bit of a tangent that we've currently got Winston Peters trying to put through a bill where basically every business, for the most generalized, but every business must accept cash. You have to have cash on hand, and you must accept cash as a form of payment. Again, I 100% am behind that. However, most banks are now charging businesses to deposit cash.
Because it's
So
become an
again-
inconvenience.
Again, I say, if you're going to force a business to do or not to be able to do this, then you need to put a halt to the bank as well. The problem is that where the government is too scared to confront the banks. They don't have a backbone enough. And I'm not talking about the government in terms of the current National Act and New Zealand First League government. I'm talking about the government in general.
Yeah, it's not something that's changed. It's not something that's changed this term. It's been ongoing for a while. I'm just going to jump back in.
What I would like to point out here, and I'm just going to put my tinfoil hat on a little bit. PayWave contactless payment became a really big thing over COVID, right? And people are saying, all well and great. The banks, they waived the fees so that businesses would all start using it, made it really easy for people because, it's COVID time. We don't want to get sick, so let's make this contactless. In my opinion, that wasn't the case at all. It was a calculated decision because they looked at it and said, well, the pandemic is only going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Let's play the long game here. Let's make it free right now. Let's get as many people using PayWave or contactless payment options as possible so that when the pandemic's over and we can actually start charging again, we can make a shitload of money. And it will be hard to break that cycle because people have created a habit. They've created a habit of using PayWave. And it's interesting because if you look at Starbucks is not a coffee company. Right? They're a coffee company at face value as much as McDonald's is a burger company at face value. But Starbucks' business is loyalty system. All of their money is in a loyalty system that has hundreds of thousands of users that have got millions and millions of dollars loaded into there, which is basically free lending for Starbucks. And they get people hooked and creating a habit. So it's big business looking at habit creation. And so the bank has done the same thing with PayWave. And it's actually an important part of psychology of money that as small businesses, we actually should be looking at is how do we create habit creation? Because we want somebody in every single day. We love our customers that are only in once a week or twice a week, but really we want them in every single day.
Absolutely.
Not just because we love having conversations with them. And not just because we want to provide awesome hospitality, but we are in business. There is a monetary aspect. The more times we can get them through the door, the more times they will spend money. That is the habit creation.
Repeat customers are some of my favourite customers, I'll be honest.
Absolutely. That means that, they've come once and they like the coffee enough to come the second time.
Well, I was just going to jump back in there and say about the PayWave side of it. Again, from my business perspective, is I've elected to have PayWave turned on and not charge for it on the basis that I work solo. So while I'm dicking around with someone like myself who's forgotten who's paying for their coffee today, be it the business, be it the wife or whatever, and they hit the wrong account, they're using the wrong card, and they take 4 transactions to do it, I'm not managing to get to the customer behind them and the one behind that who's in a hurry and walks away. And I think, yeah, okay, this has cost me 2%. That person that just walked away, that's cost me 100%. My maths isn't good, but 2 is less than 100. And that's been my justification. Don't get me wrong, it's not solid maths, and I'm aware of that.
I think, though, I'd like to identify, I think that's more the customer than the situation. I mean, when you're dealing with cash, it's a longer process. When you're dealing with somebody that's indecisive, it's a longer process. In 99.9% of times, people on the queue behind are okay about that. They might get a little bit agitated, but it's not on you. They understand enough that that's what it is. So, I think in the last maybe this year, I might have seen 2 people walk out my door. And they stood in queue for 5 seconds. So it's not like they stood there waiting for ages. They stood in queue for 5 seconds and decided, you know what, this isn't for me. I've got to go. And that's fine. Like,
And that's it.
I would actually, controversially, I would rather them leave.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
if they don't leave, then once they've got into ordering, there's another however long between ordering and them getting their product. Because again, I'm in the space on my own, right? There's another however long from them ordering to getting their product of them getting agitated and them getting frustrated. And I don't want anyone walking out my door feeling frustrated. Not because I care about a bad review as a result or anything like that, but because that's not the purpose of hospitality. Everybody that
Yes.
should
No,
walk
I
out our
appreciate.
door should be good. I've gone on a 12-minute political tangent that I think could have been far more controversial, he said, than we did. I think we were actually very tame there.
And
Not
yeah, and
entirely sure
I
how
just
I feel
wanted
about
to.
it.
Well, while we're doing that, I just wanted to address the public holiday surcharge. Again, that's a real big thing, and we could probably come back to this, and potentially will, depending on if this is the way that we're playing the political snakes and ladders. But again, my argument has always been that, again, for me, I'm a small business, I work by myself. Is it worthwhile me opening this public holiday? Yes, so I'm going to. Is it not? Am I going to be sitting there twiddling my thumbs? Cool, I'll have the day off. And so I don't charge the surcharge. Many people say, oh, do you not pay yourself time and a half? I think I say with some of the business owners, there's some weeks that I just don't pay myself, period. My thing is...
Mate, when was the last time you took sick pay?
I don't have time to get sick. And so it's one of those things. My argument is, and I do see it locally, and I respect the business owners who have elected not to open a lot of the public holidays because, as they say, in a smaller business, you're then having, while you're doing the time and a half, it's helping you pay the 15% surcharge is helping you pay the time and a half. You're also giving your staff members, you're still giving your team an additional day that they need to be able to take over and above their other leave, which therefore actually starts to create other issues in the running of your cafe space. I think when you're anything under about a 10-person team, like it's certainly under 5, it creates some issues. You don't employ people if you don't need them. And so the minute you lose 1 or potentially 2, it becomes very stressful. And I've seen a few locals who, I respect their position on not opening a lot of the public holidays because it gives their staff time with their families and so on and so forth. And it also alleviates that headache. And so my personal standpoint on it is I'm very reluctant to the point of I will not go somewhere that is charging the surcharge because if it's worthwhile you being open, it's worthwhile you being open. If not, give your staff the day off. And again, that also means that with a few less places, the people that are open are a bit busier. It makes it worth their while. That's just my view on it. And again, that's a moral standpoint rather than a mathematical one.
I think for me, I mean, I don't charge a surcharge because again, it is just me, and same thing. Don't pay myself sick pay. Why would I pay myself time and a half? I think though, from a staffing perspective, I mean, we pick and choose our public holidays that I open. Monday ones we don't, unless it's a major one that feels like it's going to be busy and still usually isn't. Friday ones we will because Fridays usually are busy. I don't charge a surcharge. I think though, coming from a time when I did have employees, if I was to, like, we closed on public holidays then. If we were to open, we would have surcharged. Like, I understand what you're saying, you know, if it's worth you opening, you open, you don't surcharge. I understand what you're saying there. However, I think there's a lot more logistics that go into it than just a simple time and a half plus day in lieu. And a lot more risk as well. The other argument is when you say, if you don't think it's worth it, just close. Well, then everybody closes and nobody has anywhere to go on a public holiday. And that's been a long-going argument. You know, if you want a cafe to be open, they're going to charge you more on a public holiday. And if you're going to complain about it, then next time they'll close and you won't have anywhere to go. So I think it's another one of those long-running debates that's never going to have a resolution. And I think what it will come down to is the government will ban surcharging because somebody will complain about pay wave fees, then will complain about being surcharged for going out on a public holiday, and then businesses will get it banned. But
you know, I'm going to put something...
politics.
I'm going to put something really controversial out there to finish this up because I am. The way I see it is typically small business like you and I, where it's the owner is on the tools, facing the customers, they're facing the heat. Don't do it because they do not have 1 or 2 degrees of separation from the customer who is unhappy about the surcharge on public holidays. I'm not saying that it is because you can use your I'm not just saying that because you can use your staff member as a shield. That's not the point I'm getting at, but you can take it if you want it.
You just gave me an image of those Perspex shields that we used on our counters during COVID, but instead of a Perspex shield, I'll pick up one of my staff members and put them in between me and the customer and use that as a shield so, I don't catch COVID.
Yeah, but no, I feel that, again, it may be maybe a psychological thing that bigger businesses have that degree of separation. They're not facing the heat, and some people, or the greater majority of people, won't take it up with a staff member, don't shoot the messenger and all that. But also there's added costs when you've got staff and so on. And so I can only comment from a small business perspective. So I'm not throwing shade. I'm simply putting my perspective out there. But I do plan to throw some shade now.
Yeah, well, that was 20 minutes of politics for it was meant to be a 5-minute discussion, so
Yeah, no, we play the long game here at the Coarse Grind. So I want to throw a bit of shade at, again, it is potentially some of the bigger companies, but I think it's also people that mean well. And that is jargon, buzzwords, greenwashing.
Greenwashing. Oh, mate. You're stepping into it there. That's a whole community greater than just the coffee community you're going up against. I hope you've got ready for the pitchforks, mate.
I've got my lawyer on speed dial.
Sad thing is you actually do right now. But that's another topic for another day, right?
Yeah, basically.
All right, dude. Well, let's talk jargon then. Let's talk greenwashing. Let's talk buzzwords and about their place in the industry. And what have you got for me?
So it's marketing. It is just marketing. So everybody's looking for a way to explain why they're doing something different. In a lot of cases, why they're better than their opposition. It's good business practice to promote what you're doing well other than identify what your competitors are doing badly. And so finding that niche, that new word that makes you seem like the better choice. And so we've seen this a lot in coffee, especially with the rise of specialty coffee. So I'm going to start off really broad. My background prior to roasting is running a coffee subscription. So I've worked with a lot of who I would call the who's who of the New Zealand coffee industry. And as a result, talking to a lot of the importers about where coffees come from, getting background stories. And no disrespect to anybody here, but I see it filter through into roasters' bios on both their brand and their coffee about how they use only the finest beans picked with the strictest criteria from the best growing regions and everything else. And you know what? We'll buy from the same people if you're... Hey?
Blah, blah.
I can hear you.
And that's literally what I heard when you were saying those words, right?
Yeah. And so it's noise.
It's regurgitation.
Yeah, and so two things here. At a rough count, last count, there's about 10 importers into New Zealand. We all buy from the same people. And unless you're using competition lots in your blends, you're not using the finest coffees available. You're using blenders. They're still specialty grade coffees and they've had a lot of care put into them. But it's things like this that just, it's jargon, it's noise. And so that's kind of my rant. But I also wanted to, with this, we see it so much. And I'm not blaming anyone in particular or any brand in particular. I remember reading a little while ago, and this is one of the topics that again led to us starting this podcast, was, and I think it was by Filter Magazine, the psychology of coffee snobbery. And they were talking about this, how often and I'm going to put my hand up and say, I would have been guilty of this with a lack of knowledge when I started in the industry. You pick up on these things, you're, oh, wow, this is amazing. But it's the fact that you don't know what you don't know.
I mean, you've got to have description, right? You need to have a bit of fluff to build up your brand, right? But if you're using the exact same jargon as the next person, and talking about finest, highest quality, like you say the highest quality, what's your comparative here? What's the lowest quality you're talking about in comparative? Are you saying that it's the highest quality green bean you can provide? Are you saying it's the highest quality roasted product you can provide? Are you saying it's the highest quality versus your competitors? Like, it's really just generic bullshit.
Yes.
Sorry to put it plainly, because everybody is claiming it. Everybody is saying, we are the best. We are the best quality. We are the finest. This is the best. And so, when we went through COVID, everyone said, buy local, buy local, buy local, buy local, buy local, buy local. And eventually, it just became noise.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm a big fan. I'm a big supporter of buying local. But when you regurgitate the same thing over and over and over and over again, it just becomes noise. So if I go online and I start looking at coffee and that's what they see, I zone out because I've already seen that on the last 5 websites.
Well, specialty coffee used to be a real badge of honor that you were roasting specialty coffee. And I remember early on in my subscription talking to Jason at Trade Aid, so the coffee importer for Trade Aid, and talking about specialty. And he said, well, I don't know about some out there, but everything that you're buying is specialty. See, there's not many out there that are doing anything else. Like, do some of these people have a different definition of specialty when they're talking about these things? And again, it becomes noise. I wanted to go back to talking about only the strictest ripening criteria, and I do see this, and no disrespect to the importers that I've worked with, that I'll get back to this, but again, often in the bios of these single origin lots, or especially single origin lots, it will explain how the producer has selected the harvested using the strict ripeness criteria and so on. I have absolutely no doubt they have. But what this led me to was during COVID, a conversation with Carl Wainhold, who Carl is the author of the Cheap Coffee book and used to represent Cedro Alto. And I featured one of what I believe to be the only lots of theirs that came to New Zealand, certainly the only one I ever saw. And as I did, I got back in touch with him, being the importer, and said, hey, have you got some more background information on this? Have you got a bio and some photos and so on? And his conversation with me was fantastic. As he explained to me, he said, I don't write bios for all of our producers because I'm looking at this group of coffee farmers from one lens. He said, so I'm just going to be rehashing the same words for all of these people. He said, I will try and go back to Andreas. I can't think of the guy's surname, but one of the most phenomenal Colombian coffees I've ever had. And he said, I'll try and put a couple of questions back to you. Sorry, I'll try and put a couple of questions back to him on your behalf and have him answer them for you, which I thought was fantastic. And what I loved was his perspective on the fact that, and looking back on it now with a few more years under my belt, that we do every lot you look at it. So yes, these guys that we're buying from, that we're getting these, again, 85, 86, like, higher end specialty coffees, of course they're picking them with the strictest of criteria. That's how they're getting the high cup score. That is why they are at the top of their game. That's why we're paying more for it. But it's just jargon. It's just a buzzword now. It's not setting the world on fire.
So, what else have you got? What other bits of jargon really get you annoyed? Really get under your skin?
Organic.
I was waiting for this one. That one was up my sleeve. Go away, that's mine.
Is that yours?
Well, yeah, I did. So I'll lead into this one, eh?
Yep, go for it.
Organic thing, because it's such a broad thing to jump on, because it's not specific to coffee. Organic in itself is a much larger thing. And you know somebody, and we used to have good debates about organic, and about a lot of different things. But he was right to me when he said, at the end of the day, everything that is living matter is organic.
Yeah.
Really, it's farmed spray-free, or it's farmed using organic materials. My biggest issue with organic in the New Zealand coffee industry, in the global coffee industry, and in a lot of other food-produced industries as well, where we're relying on developing nations to provide the product that we use, because it is coming from a developing nation. There are so many of them that actually follow organic procedures.
Yes.
Technically actually meet the criteria. The problem is that the difference between organic and organic certified.
Yes.
Because they're a developing nation where they don't have the money, they don't have the means to get that organic certification to be able to play with all the other organic players. So they miss out. So I think, I'm not saying don't use organic coffee. I'm not saying don't support organic coffee. I'm saying don't let organic coffee be what makes the decision for you. Don't let that label be what makes the decision for you, because for all you know, the other 10 coffees you had before you decide to become organic with your consumption probably met organic standards.
Yes.
That's my big thing with organic. That's my big pet peeve. We've had organic coffees. We've not had organic coffees. it's just. I think if you are selling an organic coffee, yeah, you do need like an organic certified coffee. By all means, certify it organic. But I don't think it needs to be such a big ordeal that it's an organic thing.
It's
It frustrates me seeing social media pop up saying we're organic coffee, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, but like my lemons at home are technically organic, but I couldn't sell them to you as organic because I'm not paying the price to certify my lemons as organic.
and that's the thing, and it's in my limited research. Again, like everything, it is not a set and forget certification. So therefore, 1 year you might be able to certify your lemons as organic because you've got the cash flow to do it. But if you're operating on a very small plot and you haven't got the breathing space between you and your neighbor who isn't organic, you can't get into the organic market because you don't have that exclusion zone. You also have 3 years of not being able to do anything. I believe it's 3 years, but you have a grace period where you've got to not use any pesticides, etc., before you can get that certification. There's a number of hurdles to it. And again, when you get to our level, if we were to be an organic certified roaster, and again, this is one of the things that's on my shit list, is call yourself organic all you like. If you're not certified, you're bullshitting your customer. Like, if you want to have the credentials, pay for them. That's how it works. And so
But if the farmer has to pay to have organic certification to be able to call their products organic and sell it to you as organic, then you need to pay for it if you want to be able to call your products organic as well.
absolutely.
If you want to go through
And
the
so
certification process.
And so for me, people have asked me, again, being relatively new into the roasting scene, is your coffee organic? I said no. And the reason for that is it would completely defy the logic of why I got into roasting. I got into roasting because I wanted to be able to have more control over the stories I was sharing. And for me to operate as a organic certified roaster, regardless of the cost, limits me only to organic certified coffees.
It would be the same thing as you saying, I'm only going to roast single origins, I'm not doing blends. Or I'm only going to sell decaf, I'm not going to sell anything else. Like it's that you're creating that limitation for your business and that limitation for exploration.
And the interesting thing is, one importer that I spoke to in a casual conversation said to me, approximately 75% of what comes into their warehouse is organic certified. 0% is organic certified when it leaves because there's only a small handful, and at the time we could pick 5 roasters in New Zealand who were organic certified. And big ups to these guys for picking a market and sticking to it. But what I've noticed about these guys over the years is their range is a little smaller and a lot less dynamic in the coffees that they're offering. What they do offer is fantastic. No disrespect there, but they are a lot more limited.
I think it's the same argument, if you're a direct trade. If you're just direct trade, right? Fantastic that you are. Like, real big props to any of the roasters in New Zealand that are direct trade. I do know of a couple, I believe. But it does limit your options, right? Because then you're directly dealing with that one farm or those 2 farms or the specific farms that you're dealing with, which means that you're not accessing stuff from importers. You're not playing with different stuff, focused on that. And yes, it is great relationship building. It is great to see more money put into the farms, but it does limit you. So you choose the direction of your business, right? All right, dude, that was organic. What's your next one? Because I've already lined up.
I haven't finished with organic. I want to come back to the reason.
I think I've finished with you.
The real reason that organic frustrates the life out of me is it's thrown around by some very big companies and without context. They've got a much bigger marketing budget than probably all of us small independent New Zealand-owned roasters combined, and it muddies the waters. They're talking organic. It's not organic specialty coffee. It'll be organic commodity grade coffee. It will be a lower grade coffee. And the advantage here, this is their point of difference. They have potentially 1 mill, 1 supply chain set up just running all year round, supplying them because they produce so much coffee. What also happens is with that massive purchasing power, the ability to go to a producer group, a cooperative, or whoever or however they're purchasing and say, we want X amount of hundreds of tons of this grade of coffee per year, organic, fair trade, whatever other buzzwords you want to put in there that help with your marketing, we are prepared to pay you this. What happens is it streamlines the process. That's the whole point that we made before, is that if you've got one profile, one coffee, nothing's changing. It makes it very easy. And what I say to that is, well, I don't agree with it. It is incredibly easy for big corporations in developed countries to lean on developing countries for the price they want to pay. Good luck leaning on the big producers of milk in a developed country that can and does significantly overuse synthetic fertilizers and so on to produce organic milk at the price you're willing to pay. Which brings me back to a quick calculation I did a little while ago. And that is, in your 12-ounce flat white, which is the most common cup size that is purchased, in fact, it's probably 16-ounce, but we don't serve buckets, you're using an 18.5 gram dose of espresso. You get a 25% yield on that of TDS. That gives you about 4.5 grams of actual dissolved coffee material in the cup. Less than 1%, or just over 1%. Basically, put in the old money, 5/5 of fuck all.
If you're not using organic milk, what the fuck's the point?
Exactly. Therefore, do you think the big companies are focusing on the wrong thing? That is why I call it greenwashing. I've made these comments for a while, and just a bit of a disclaimer here. Back in March, I actually moved over to using organic milk just because I really want to stand on the moral high ground and throw stones at these pricks. Now, carry on.
Well, I suppose you using organic milk and non-organic coffee is closer to being an organic cup of beverage than the other way around, right?
But there's a bloody good chance that my coffee is organic. I just don't know, and I don't uphold the certification.
It's just not necessarily certified.
Yeah.
All right. Please send all your criticism to coffee@derelict.co.uk.
Yeah, the email address is unmanned.
All right, I'm gonna hit you with another one, dude, because this one's been chewing at me for quite some time, probably more so than organic has.
Yeah.
And this is one that I think this one gets me because there's no clear defining number for it. Stop using the term small batch.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I love the concept of small batch. I love the idea of what that is supposed to embody, right? But basically now it's gotten to the point that every time I see somebody say, we're a small batch coffee roastery, I'm thinking, so what you're saying is either you don't wholesale because you don't have clients, or you're not doing more than 10 kilos a week of output. That to me, 10 kilos a week of output, 20 kilos a week of output, that's small batch, right?
Yeah.
Now, because you can do it on a 1 kilo or a 2 kilo roaster. Like, you want to talk about small batch to me. A small batch is a cafe that is self-roasting. They are a small batch, right? Not a coffee roaster. Not a coffee roaster that's trying to supply cafes. That's not small batch roasting. That's wholesale roasting.
I would argue there as well, how is small batch making it better? Are you producing a better quality coffee because you're roasting half a kilo, 2 kilo at a time? I don't believe so, because
I would argue that I'd rather have coffee roasted on a 15 kilo loring than I would have on a 1 or 2 kilo roaster.
And yeah, I would agree with that, because to justify, and like, don't get me wrong, this is potentially throwing ourselves under the bus to a degree as smaller, in the scheme of things, smaller roasters.
Though I've never called myself small batch.
No, neither have I. But it's one of those things that it's like, small batch. What is that? How does that make it better? It's not a whiskey that you've only had the estate space to store or age 3 barrels of that for 25 years. Like, it's not. No. These things don't translate.
And so, like, to me, what it says is, we're a small batch roastery, right? So we're only roasting on a 1 to 5 kilo roaster. That's cool. Right. So that is a small batch. In the big scheme of things, most people are on 15s or 20s or whatnot. Right. So a 5 kilo roaster. But when you say small batch, it embodies the idea that you are more interconnected to that coffee, that you're not doing mass production of that coffee, so on and so forth. I could do half a ton of coffee a week on a 5 kilo roaster. Does that still make me small batch? And that's my thing, is I don't have an issue with the term if it is used, if there is a clear definition as to what it is. Obviously, there's never going to be, so that's just a me problem. But it just doesn't sit. It doesn't work for me. And I wish that it did. I wish there was a way to make the term small batch. If you're a shop roaster, a cafe that's just roasting for yourself, purely for yourself, a couple of bags on the shelf, small batch. You are what I envision as small batch.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting you raised the small batch thing and talking about batches and otherwise. I saw this. Some of my shitlets is fueled by social media, which is why I say you look a lot happier having not been on there. And I see one of the big companies.
I haven't seen any of David's posts in a long time. About 4 or 5 years. Mate, life is a breeze, not feeling like guilty for being in the coffee industry every time I log onto Instagram.
I was just feeling guilty about being a white male living on this side of the world, and I can't deal with that. But anyway, aside from that, one of the big instant coffee producers, I can't remember who, and I wouldn't name them anyway for that matter, because they got more money than I do. But they made the comment, their marketing recently, that now batch roasted for better flavour. How were you roasting before? Somebody please tell me in the comments how you can roast coffee continuously. Are you doing it on a conveyor belt? Like, how are you roasting coffee if it's not batch roasted? That I would love to know. I'm here to educate and be educated.
I remember you sending me the advert. I remember having a little chuckle at that. I remember who it is as well. And no, we are not naming names.
And my issue is not that someone's getting the better of the market and so on. It's that it's confusing the life out of consumers who genuinely want to learn or make informed choices.
And I think that's the thing. Without there being clearly definition of it, like, it doesn't. I mean, if a whiskey company or a beer company or even a beer company, right? Let's talk about beer for a second here. All right. So you can do small batch beers. Absolutely. I know a local craft beer company that does small batch runs on beers, and they're seasonal. All right. And when I say small batch, again, that's probably not counted as small batch now. So we'll call them, they're limited batches, because they do it for a period of time and then they shelve it till the next year and do it again. So that's actually probably a bad comparative. Like, say a small batch whiskey company, right? And they do 3, 5, 10 barrels, and they can call it small batch. But if they turn around and said, we've done 1,000 barrels of the small batch, it's not small batch. Like,
no, but with those whiskey companies,
know that that's not small batch, and that's false advertising.
With those whiskey companies, we have a term for those sorts of things where they've got, as you say, 3, 5, 10 batches. In the coffee industry, we have terms like micro lot, nano lot, day harvest. These things, which again, I'm sure we'll come back to, because these don't have any specifically a clear definition, but you will get some weird coffee lots that they do have that exclusivity. Like, there was a coffee came through from Hyro Asilla, so CoffeeNet, that was a thermal stroke process. 30 kilo of it came to New Zealand. They said they would never do it again. That is a small batch.
And that is a small batch. So that would be the same as you turning around and saying, well, to CoffeeNet and saying, cool, I'm going to buy 10 kilos of that. And then you advertising that online, roasting that and advertising that online and saying, this is a small batch. It is a limited edition. There will not be any more of it. It is never coming back to the country. Get it now. That is a small batch of a product.
Yeah.
Not small batch as a definition for a roasting company doesn't really work.
No,
and I feel like I'm shitting probably on 50% of the coffee roasting companies in New Zealand right now saying this. It doesn't work. All right, please understand. We love you. We really love you. We are not by any way, shape, or form marketers. But when you are trying to talk to the people that you are selling to, you need to. There are definitely people that small batch will get them on the hook, right? But as a generalization, I want to say people aren't that stupid. But what I'm meaning is that, it's not.
So what he means to say is do better.
Do better, yeah. It's not the right hook. It's not. But it's not educating.
No, in all seriousness.
If we had a clear definition that said if you're a coffee roaster, you can call yourself small batch if you only do 10 kilos or less a week. Then by all means, we've got something that can be defined and that can be educated on. Right now, the concept of small batch fits in with the same words as finest, highest quality, the best in the country. There's no defined parameters.
No.
I would like to point out there is an Instagram account called Strictly High Grind, and there's a couple of them of similar varieties, and we still don't know who they are. I can confirm to anyone watching this, it is neither me, and I do not believe it is Paul. I don't think he has the capacity and the time for that. But
I just don't think I have the talent.
I don't think you have the patience to put up with it. Like, I think you would actually probably go even further with it. And if you are listening, if you are Strictly High Grind, and you are listening, email me at ethan@empirecoffeeroasters.co.nz. We would love to get you on a future podcast. We'll list you as anonymous. I will go onto AliExpress or Amazon and I'll buy you one of those V for Vendetta masks, and you can sit there with that on and your hoodie on, right? You'll stay anonymous. I would love to get you on the show. But one of the things that I've noticed
same goes for direct transparency.
Direct transparency as well. If you're not the same person, just with an alter ego.
Imagine that if they're both the same person, that'd be hilarious. Starting wars with themselves on social media, that's seriously unhinged. Get into our DMs. That's the kind of thing that we're about.
One of the things I've noticed is a lot of the sort of stuff that they talk about is, they go after is the jargon, is these terms. And even dare I say it, David from Rabbit's Hole Coffee in America, and yes, I have just named David. A lot of the stuff that I see come out of him is talking about, using all of these different special terms and stuff. For him, it's from a far more political direction. But I think, we just need to get back to basics with coffee. We really need to get back to basics with coffee. And the way we talk about it and the way we educate it. Like earlier today, I threw a question into ChatGPT. I said, what's the jargon that we use in the coffee industry to define coffee? And I'm running through it. I'm like, yep, I know that. I know that. I know that. I know that. I don't know that. Okay. I know that. I know. And I'm like, but if I was hearing that for the first time and I was hearing it just as like a full-on information download of somebody just talking coffee to me, like no education behind it whatsoever, just talking about that, I wouldn't have the foggiest. I wouldn't even know how to connect it. I mean, if we were just in general conversation, you were saying, oh, I was brewing coffee at home today and my coffee was channeling and, I wasn't overly happy. So I, started again sort of thing. And then you just carried on the conversation. I learned nothing. All I learned is that there's this word called channeling in coffee. I have no fucking idea what that means, but I didn't learn what that was. All right. So we need to take a step back. We need to come back to basics, and we need to use words that are easy for people to understand, easy for people to connect with, and educate where we don't. I can't remember her name. She's the head of marketing for La Mazzocco in Australia. And she was saying on a podcast with the Just Coffee podcast the other day, she was saying, we need to use words and terms that people understand. And we use these, we're very quick and easy to use these big words or these fancy words that make our product and make us sound better. But actually, we need to use stuff that doesn't sound so pompous, is probably a good way to put it.
Well, you actually brought about the point there. And again, it's really easy to be so comfortable with some of these terms that we use and not realise that some of our customers don't understand what they are. And so explaining to people what a single origin is something that I do quite regularly because people aren't familiar with this term. You explain that it's like a single estate wine or single malt whiskey, as opposed to a blended wine that's come from multiple estates is the same as a blend. It's a flavour that you can get all year round. But again, it's really interesting.
Honest, I catch myself out all the time because I quite often get asked, so what's the difference between a single origin and a blend? And I'm sitting there and in my brain goes on, are you kidding me? Like, it's in the name, a blend. To have something that's a blend, it's a mix of something. To have something that's a single origin means it comes from one. But to people that don't people actually don't know this.
No.
Right?
And that's very valid.
And it's not necessarily because they don't know what the word blend or what the word single origin means. It's because they've never heard it in the context of coffee. They've never had to think about it in the context of coffee. And the word ignorance means basically not knowing, not having knowledge of.
Yes.
So to be ignorant of something is just not having knowledge of. And so they are ignorant of it because they've never had it in that context. And it's our responsibility, I feel it's our responsibility to actually, without mansplaining things, to provide that education, to break down those walls so that people aren't ignorant of it, so they can actually make an informed choice.
Yes.
And I think that's like the jargon and the greenwashing and all of that, it just clouds a lot of that. And it doesn't allow people to make an informed choice. 99% of the time, they just want a decent cup of coffee. They don't
And
actually
that's
care whether it's organic. They don't care whether it's, you know, picked from the highest growing freaking bush on the highest mountain of the whatever range you want to talk about. They don't necessarily care whether it's a fruit bomb, right? They don't care for that. They just want a good, happy coffee that they can sit back and enjoy at home.
yes.
And throwing
I
all the
find
jargon and all the random words doesn't help them get there. I think we have to balance here though, because we need to provide value and we need to educate.
yes.
So
Which
there is a balance between cancelling the noise and providing value in education. And so it is finding that fine line balance. And no, I don't have that down packed. And it is a learning thing. And yeah, if we're not educating, we're not providing value in my opinion.
and that's the
But
thing. And I think
it's
we are
education without noise.
and I think we are laying the foundation for education by doing these things. And again, I'm going to invite the listeners and viewers to let us know in the comments what buzzwords and jargon you're hearing around and want a bit of an explanation of, or that even you may understand what they are now, but what things confused you when you first began your coffee journey, because we'd love to explain these for everybody else. Help you, the listener, on your coffee journey understand some of this jargon, and again, some of it we may even be guilty of ourselves.
Yeah. So we're this is actually going to be a 2-part episode, and we have pre-recorded this, so it'll be a few weeks now from when we're recording it to when it's out. So we're going to wait to record the second part until this has been out for a little bit, so that we can get some of that feedback, because we would love to sort of pick away at what words you don't like and really get controversial about them and really piss off the other half of the industry that we haven't already pissed off today.
And the purpose of this podcast is to educate, help people enjoy coffee more, just to be noise and complain. That's not the intention. So in some ways, these initial few episodes where we're putting out some things that might be a little bit abrasive, we're trying to get a bit of a feel for what you guys are about, what you're enjoying, and also get some comments so we can get a feel of where you're at and what's going to provide you value.
It's also important, that we do these things and we do talk bluntly and plainly about what we identify in the industry as wins and losses and problems and solutions, because, it is really hard, like, especially if you're a small business owner, it is really hard to sort of feel like you can speak out or say, actually, that doesn't sit with me, or so on and so forth, because we constant aware of what everybody else is saying, what everybody else is doing. I mean, for both of us, it's actually a big step to say, put ourselves out here behind a mic and actually talk about these things, because, we don't actually know who in the industry we're going to unsettle with what we have to say. And it's not deliberately done as a dig at them. Everybody, he says, everybody.
No,
but you are strictly high grown, then.
And again, I have to, as Ethan said, it's not about having a dig at people. And again, hence we're trying not to name or identify people. That's not what it's about. Everybody has a part to play, and everybody has a target market and a niche market. And I guess the point of this is helping the consumer understand where the aim is. It's designed to be helpful.
It is, and I think it is about helping the end consumer. I think it's also helping the people, that's job it is to help the end consumer. The baristas on the front line, to be able to better articulate and to be able to better educate and in turn provide better value. And it's not talking about better value specifically so the business makes more money. It's actually better value so that you and us in our role as baristas feel better about what we do, love what we do more, get even more excited about it. And I'm not saying we don't, but just like fueling that fire and being able to pass that fire on to the customer so that the customer feels really empowered by what information they've been given and the education and the value. And I think that's really important. I think I'm not saying we're missing that. I think we can step that up.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is about how we articulate that and how we go about providing it.
And the more we understand, the more you understand. Again, it empowers people to ask questions about their coffee, about their consumer goods in general. And that's a direction the world's going in a lot more, about knowing where your products are coming from, because that allows you to have influence on how things are done and the potential to make a small yet positive change in the world by buying what you believe aligns with your values.
Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for making it through to this point. Slide into our DMs or drop a comment either on Instagram or over on Spotify. If you have some jargon words, buzzwords, little pet peeves, we'd love to just give us some pet peeves or even just general topics that you would love to see us discuss. As controversial as you'd like, we may or may not accept the challenge. Give us a like or follow on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
See you.